Hi everyone, and I'm glad you're here with me again. It's Saturday, time to shoot another video. Today we went on a little trip with the family and we're about to visit a castle that, in my opinion, really excites Hungarians. On RTL Club, the show Traitors Murder at the Castle is being broadcast with huge success, and this wonderful castle, the Nádasdladány Nádasdy Castle, serves as its setting. Now we've just arrived here with the family. We parked the car in the parking lot, and this castle, we can walk to the castle along this path. In the meantime, I thought I'd share a few interesting facts about the place and also tell you what I think about the show since I came all the way here and I'm filming this castle for you. To be honest with you, I don't really watch TV, and if I do, I mostly like watching YouTube channels or Netflix or, understandably because of the kids, the Disney Channel. But this is the one show that I do occasionally check out, and it's fair to say that I tune in from time to time because it doesn't tie me down. The show doesn't completely tie me down. I really like the detective aspect of it. I really enjoy that different people are brought together, and in this kind of closed off mindset, they basically try to figure out who the traitor is. But somehow, these filler games, which I think take up more than half of the show, are completely incomprehensible to me. I get that the players are collecting money through them, but for me, they make it unbearably boring. They're running around, imitating bird sounds, and so on. I would like it much more if they would basically act out murders and interrogate each other, have constant communication, all kinds of cross examinations, because that's a much more exciting thing. And in fact, that's the exciting part now, too, when they talk to each other, when they vote. But I guess that's just how the structure of the game is. But despite that, I think that it's a really great show, and it's honestly a fantastic, wonderful way to get people back in front of classic television, which is something that I think is really important and valuable. And I also think that when they don't film it with celebrities, it's always much more exciting and interesting for me personally, because these people are complete strangers to me too, just like they are to most viewers, and you see their reactions less clearly, or you know their reactions less well, or you judge them less harshly based on various behavioral norms and expectations that society has. The way you how you can win this game or what it takes to stay in. I think it's a bit formulaic because those who really throw themselves into the game are too flashy and too conspicuous, so their characters get voted out quickly. And maybe you can draw the conclusion that those who are a bit quieter, who express less opinion about anyone, are the ones who can maybe stay in longer. But I'm sure that for every participant, this is a huge live social game, which is wonderful to experience. I once took part in a program that I recommend to everyone. It was called Murder at Dinner, and it was a really great thing because during dinner, actors performed a crime and we were the detectives and we had to figure out who the murderer was. I think it's a fantastic program. It was really, really good. I truly recommend it to everyone. Meanwhile, we've arrived at the castle. By the way, my first impression is that on TV this looks much, but it looks much bigger, even here on camera, I think. This doesn't mean that it's not a big castle or that anyone wouldn't want to live in a house this size, but it really is noticeably much smaller than what I saw. Well, here you can also see a wonderful model parade in the meantime. But let's see what is worth knowing about this castle. So the land itself was purchased in 1730 by the Smidek family, who were a count's family, and then the estate was bought from them in 1830. In 1851 by Count Lipot Nádasdy, who simply wanted to move the center of the estate from Vas County to Fejér County. Thanks to Nádasdy Lipot's son, Ferenc Nádasdy, and his wife, Countess Ilona Zsicsi, a new English Tudor-style castle was built based on the plans of István Linsbauer, who was commissioned by them. The construction took place between 1873 and 1876, replacing the earlier Baroque manor house. Meanwhile, as I'm modeling here for you, I'm also showing you that this is the part of the castle where Attila Larpa, right here, exactly where Attila Larpa usually welcomes the contestants. On the ground floor of the main wing, there were social spaces, while the upper floor housed family and staff rooms. The area around the old building was filled in the side wing, which was converted to a single story, rooms for guests and staff members were created. Due to the untimely death of the young countess, she did not live to see the preparations for the castle. The most ornate first rooms of the building, masterpieces of our historicist castle architecture, such as the Hall of Ancestors, the library, and the now destroyed chapel, were designed by Alajos Haussmann after Winsbauer's death. By the end of the 19th century, this building and its surroundings, which previously accommodated a much larger number of people, the various, the various I'll definitely talk to you more about the mosaic tile gallery style entrance hall, but What's striking is just how bright this whole hall is. I think this staircase will be familiar to everyone from the show. And of course, we had to go to the restroom, which is in the basement, and we immediately ran into this spot. For those who recognize the basement, let me show you. Just take a look. This is where, by the way, Attila Arpa or Feleske usually does the nominations. The Traitors, and I think this is also where the conclave usually takes place, or at least it did at some point. I filmed the restroom because it's actually pretty cool that the castle's cross section is on the restroom doors. So let's move on, and here you can take a look at the basement, and yes, these areas were closed off, so it's possible that the cellar continues somewhere here, which makes perfect sense, since in old castles all sorts of service rooms were located here. Here you can see the families, their coat of arms. It was really beautiful to be here, by the way. And I'm pretty sure that the conclave was definitely held in this spot before, because if you look at pictures from the show, it looks incredibly similar to this. Of course, right now you can't see it because of the family tree projection, but this is the archway. This is what the back looked like. And I think this is where those big barrels were, along with the fake cobwebs and everything. Everything is set up. When you enter the cafe, you find the family's old dining room. What struck me first was how unpretentious it is. It absolutely gives you the feeling that you can practically see the family actually using this room. I've visited a lot of castles in my life, but many times I felt like the rooms were just for show. They were there so that when guests came, they could see, look, we have this too. But here, you can really sense the family's permanence. These wonderful blue and white porcelain pieces and the matching tiled stove with the Nádasdy family crest, if you noticed. Let's step into the grand salon, which I think is practically the central room of the entire place. It took us a little while to realize that this is also the breakfast room. You know, this picture is usually on this wall and people usually stand in front of it here. And well, the breakfast area is here too. It took us a bit longer to figure that out. So basically, when they're filming, they move these beautiful chairs out of here or they push them aside, and this becomes the breakfast area as well. And over there, where you saw that door, that's where the voting out takes place behind it. But now let's go into the winter garden. I also took a picture here so you can see this is the wonderful winter garden that appears so many times in the show, since there are rooms opening into each other here, where I suppose the players are allowed to talk during these times. And this is also where the filming takes place. The winter garden is one of the most beautiful spaces in the castle, opening from the grand salon. It was restored based on old photographs, so it has regained its original splendor. During the renovation, special attention was paid to making visitors feel as if they were in an aristocratic home. I especially liked in the winter garden that they thought of the children, and look, they even prepared a little puzzle for them, which I think is a great thing, because in every room we always found something to keep the kids occupied, to keep them busy. Here you can see the park, which is also well known from the show. Many scenes and frames were filmed here based on the program. But let's go back for a moment to the Grand Salon. The Grand Salon was the center of social life in the castle. For socializing, the upholstered furniture sets purchased at the time of construction provided comfort. I especially liked that you could actually sit on the furniture here, since, of course, they are replica pieces, and this way we could immerse ourselves even more in the atmosphere. We could really take in the atmosphere of the place. By the way, the upholstery, the warm colors, and the various musical instruments all help transport us back to the era when this room was truly used by the family and was the center of social life. Naturally, this room also housed the family's greatest art treasures, paintings, and sculptures. The most valuable Dutch tapestry was also here. Now we're approaching the Hall of Ancestors, which in the show is actually the location for the eliminations, but since there was a guided tour going on, we were promptly sent out. I think you know this aspect from the series as well. Meanwhile, the girls finished the puzzle in the winter garden. Here we can also see a few wonderful old photos of the family, so I'll definitely come back to the Hall of Ancestors because I'm sure everyone's interested in it. But for now, let's check out the rooms. All the rooms you see here are also you see in the show. I'll try to insert some pictures. What I noticed is that during filming, they take these pieces of furniture out, and all the seating you see in the show is brought in specifically for the program. This was pretty obvious since the furniture they brought in really doesn't match the style of the castle. Right now we're in the small salon, and sometimes the sky was very cloudy, so the picture gets dark at times. Sorry about that. Meanwhile, the men are still in the billiard room, could withdraw from the company in the large salon or dining room, while the ladies would gather in the small salon, also known as the boudoir, at least when it was in use. According to the castle's 1893 description, the marvelous Eastern and European furniture, the marble fireplace, the beautiful mirrors, porcelain pieces, silverware, and especially the religious-themed paintings were all arranged as Ilona Zici herself had designed. Out of reverence, however, at that time no one used the room. Contrary to its originally intended function, for decades it served more as a memorial to Ilona Zici than as a venue for cheerful social gatherings. Meanwhile, we entered the Count's study, a smaller room next to the library, where everything reminded him of loved ones lost in his youth. However, its primary function was to handle estate affairs, correspondence, and meetings. Yet the room itself was a tribute to his immediate family. The wall. In the room, portraits of Ilona Zici were displayed, one depicting her as a bride, another showing her with her young daughter. The writer's desk, from which there was an excellent view of the park, was positioned so that his wife and children looked upon Count Nádasdy. The portrait of his brother Tamas, who died young, was painted by Orlai, and the ivory miniatures of his parents were also placed in this room. I've included a picture from the show for you here. You can see the wallpaper, though I didn't place it exactly at the window angle this time, but it's a beautiful walking scene. And you can also see period chairs, which of course you couldn't sit on since they're not replicas. And from here, we enter the wonderful and magical library. In the show, the library looks a bit different. That means it was filled with various sofas, as you can see in the picture here. And if I remember correctly, in different seasons, there were sofas of different colors, but the library itself is absolutely stunning. Wherever I go, always. But the place where I love these libraries the most and where I'm terribly envious, I would really love to have one like this for myself. Just look at how wonderful it is. And what I always want most is to go up to the upper floor on this staircase, but it's always closed off. Just look at how beautifully stunning it is. Now let's see what we should know about it. The founder of this nationally significant library, which took shape by the end of the 19th century, was Lipot Florian Nádasdy, who in part with his own acquisitions and in part from the inheritance of his uncle, Bishop Laszlo Csanárdi Nádasdy, assembled the collection in Felso-Lendva, Vas County. When the construction of the castle was completed, the books that had previously been kept at Agarpusta were transported to Nádasdladány, and in 1881 the arrangement of the library began. After the gallery-style library room was completed, which also served as a writing, reading, and smoking room, more than 25,000 volumes were placed there. Let's talk a little about social life. In the 1920s, the Nádasdy Castle and its park became gathering places for the kinds of social circles typical of aristocratic society. For example, people would meet here for hunting. After the drive or stalking, the group would relax in the castle's salon, while the servants bustled about in the kitchen, and the freshly caught game would be eaten in the dining room, after which the trophies were placed on the wall. As you can see, this breakfast room has a very masculine appearance since it displayed the game hunted by the owner, and as I saw in the original photos, there were many more trophies on the wall. There was hardly any space left for another new trophy. Of course, the billiard room was also part of the program. There are plenty of materials showing people sitting on the billiard table or playing while others watched. But besides billiards, this room also served as a retreat, a place for conversation, for men's gatherings. According to their interests, the walls of the room were covered with paintings by Harry Hall and Emily Adam depicting horses, which immortalized the favorite four-legged companions of Counts Lipot and Ferenc Nádasdy, who maintained the famous racing stable. In a wonderful old photo, I also saw a ping-pong table, a truly beautiful one. So the gentlemen didn't just play billiards, but also ping-pong. However, the lighting here was terribly poor, so the paintings aren't even visible. You can't see much of them, nor much of the room itself. Here you can see the gentlemen's marvelous attire which they wore while engaging in these activities, but again, not much of it is visible. Maybe I'll try to insert a photo here. Now, this is a famous painting, a huge central piece painted by Emil Adam, which recalled Ferenc Nádasdy's memorable hunts in Agard and his guests. Below it was the smoking room, and in the corner under the tower were comfortable seats and the ember stand, which made spending time there even more pleasant. Meanwhile, we've arrived at the Hall of Ancestors, which, in terms of the show, was the location for the eliminations. And actually, I don't think it's that easy to recognize because, as you see in the show, these paintings aren't always visible, or they're shown in very dark colors, not covered, just not illuminated. But these benches underneath are usually visible, as is this round table, this marvelous round table. They bring that in. It's not actually part of the Hall of Ancestors, but what really makes it recognizable, as I said, are the benches and the back of the fireplace, which is always beautifully lit in the show. You can see it there. The fireplace runs along the back here, and that's a great way to identify it. If you look at the picture, you can definitely see it, and this is the corridor where the players always enter the Hall of Ancestors. The Nádasdy cult is the castle's most spectacular feature. It reached its peak in the Hall of Ancestors. Just like the facade, the wooden ceiling follows English patterns, with carved wall paneling, a massive fireplace bearing the Nádasdy coat of arms and motto, and family portraits lined up all around, making up Hungary's most ornate ancestral gallery. We've arrived upstairs, and I think it's wonderful. They often cut in shots of this area for the show, especially this part I'm showing now, or the doors which they use to imitate, as if the players live there and, for example, someone knocks on the door. I really like this space because it presents a simple, understated, romantic depiction, since all the important existing rooms of this castle open from these rooms, halls, and this gallery, whether it's the Hall of Heroes or the Grand Salon. Now let's take a look at the governess's room. A castle could only provide for the owners and guests if directly next to the governess's room was the children's room, which I really liked because it was set up in such a way that you feel like you're part of an exhibition, but in reality, it was a playroom for the children who came here. Everything that was on display could be played with except for the bed. Understandably, you couldn't get on the bed and you couldn't use the old clothes on the bed either. But this is also a great idea because this way you can get children to enjoy exhibitions, so hats off to them. In front of the castle, because they did this really, really well. Just look at these beautiful clothes, those teddy bears that are on display. This bed here was enormous. The camera doesn't do justice to how huge this bed actually was, and it was absolutely stunning. Naturally, I really liked the doll carriage. And just look at how much fun the kids were having. And for some reason, I remember that this piece of furniture, the one my mom was sitting on, wasn't part of one of the seasons or wasn't in one of the exhibitions. So we're heading back into this wonderful foyer, and as we step inside, you can really appreciate how open and welcoming this area feels. Just look at this marble floor. Its polished surface catches the light beautifully, and the subtle patterns in the stone add a refined touch to the space. I really like this wooden railing too. It has a smooth finish and a warm, natural color that stands out against the marble, making the whole area feel both elegant and inviting. This is truly impressive. By the way, the entrance is down there at the bottom of the stairs, and right now we're directly above it, which gives us a nice view of the entryway below and lets us see how everything comes together in this part of the home. The Grand Salon, where we are now, this is a model. A model? It's a model of the castle itself. This used to be a little gift shop. My observation here as well, actually I cut this part from the video, was that there was a display case with toys in it, and just like at the Festetics Castle Museum, my opinion is that there was a sign saying these are only exhibition items, not for sale. Honestly, these are exactly the ones I would like to have. To buy, there were beautiful dolls, beautiful model cars, incredibly lovely things on display, and people would gladly buy these rather than just buying pens. Now, we've moved on to the bedroom. The intimate and loving relationship between Count Nádasdy and his wife Ilona Zicsi is also shown by the fact that, surprisingly for the era, they designed a shared bedroom. At the ceremonial laying of the castle's foundation stone, Ilona Zicsi was still present, but on September 5, 1873, she fell victim to the cholera epidemic. Ferenc Nádasdy never remarried. He furnished several rooms of the castle in memory of his wife and commissioned numerous portraits of her, which he placed in his various castles. Naturally, the noble residence was also equipped with a plumbing system. Water flowed from a huge tank placed in the tower, supplying the bathrooms located on all three floors, as well as The house's only centrally heated bathroom with hot water was connected to the Count's suite. In the other bathrooms, water was heated in stove tanks. The large tank was also connected to the park's irrigation systems, and any excess water flowed into the overflow, that is, into the lake. Now it's time to go out to the park for a bit. The children need to move around, which, in my opinion, also deserves top marks when it comes to the operation of the castle. That out in the garden you can find countless children's toys. After an hour of looking around, reading and scanning QR codes for historical information, it's only natural that the kids get tired and need to move. This is a staircase, for example, where Attila Arpa often walks down during the show and delivers various intros. But the kids were already worn out, having done a lot of bug hunting. They found plenty of them, but hey, welcome to nature. By the way, looking at it now, this park seems huge, and it actually is big, but the camera makes it look even bigger than it really is. In the background, there happened to be a wedding photo shoot going on, which I think is a wonderful idea, and I'm sure the newlyweds got some beautiful pictures. I could barely keep the girls from running over there. Here they started running around like crazy, burning off their energy. Now, it's October now, so we don't see any beautiful flowers, but I still think nature is gorgeous like this. When the castle was being renovated, the size of the park was also expanded in every direction, and the construction of the spectacular new English garden, enriched with a lake, began as well. In one of our most beautiful historic castle gardens, the work was carried out in several phases. The project was first overseen by Josef Ruber and later by Janos Kalman, both estate head gardeners. The road coming from Jeno was relocated, and during Miedeg's time it was placed within the area of the granary park he built. The horticultural buildings were renovated, the size of the kitchen garden increased, and the service buildings located south of the castle were screened from the main building with evergreens. For the children, a playhouse was built in a folk style, along with a pool, a bathhouse, and a summer pavilion for cooling off. On an artificial hill, water cascaded and rushed down rocks into the most spectacular feature of the park, the lake. We suspect, just imagine, that this is the area where the characters usually go for the conclave, because there are often torches set up here in the evenings, and they tend to show a long stretch of this part of the castle. In the corner of the castle park, the village church was built, and later on a spectacular palm house was also erected. In front of the entrance, a fountain was installed, and in the park, Janos Valentin, the house painter, was given a studio. All of these, and of course the castle itself, offered magnificent views. The carriage and walking paths winding through the rich plant life provided excellent views. The park at Nádasdladány was famous for its diversity. Its collection of plants, which held dendrological value, created a varied world of colors and forms. I really liked the park because it felt so natural. If I were to look at it from the perspective of a castle visitor, there is still work to be done here, since it's not as impressive as, say, the park of the Festetics Castle. Park, but for me, it's exactly this incredible naturalness that I really like about it. And I'm sure it used to be different in the past, but even now it's wonderful. And just look at how many fish are in this lake. In fact, the ladies here gave us a bit of bread, and such an unbelievable number of fish came to eat that bread that it was a unique experience in itself. But this is also, for example, a really cute thing because on TV, and I think even here on camera, this lake looks huge. It's big, but not as big as it looks on TV. I also have a little surprise for you. Whoever subscribes to the channel, likes the video, and writes a nice comment, I'll draw a winner and send them a book I bought at the souvenir shop, a little book called The Legend of the Castle, the Nádasdladány Nádasdy Castle. I think everyone will enjoy reading it. So subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and I'll send that wonderful book from the castle to someone. In the meantime, take a look at these photos I took, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, and thank you so much for watching this video as well.